Hi and welcome to the DrumDrops Mapex Heavy Rock Kit for Kontakt. This is a Mapex Saturn kit. The distinct tone of the shells comes from the mix of maple and walnut. The kit is constructed of 6 plies of wood for a shell thickness of 5.1mm. The kit comprises of a Mapex Saturn 22-inch kick drum, 3 snares, a Mapex Black Panther hammered phosphor bronze 14-inch by 6.5-inch, a Mapex Black Panther 14-inch by 5-inch, a Mapex Machete 14-inch by 6.5-inch. There are 2 Mapex rack toms, a 10-inch by 8-inch and a 12-inch by 9-inch, and a 16-inch by 16-inch floor tom. The hi-hats are paste sound edge 14-inch hi-hats. The cymbals consist of a paste dry heavy 21-inch ride, a paste 20 metal 18-inch crash, a paste metal China 18-inch crash, a paste 20 custom 19-inch crash, and a paste 20 custom 20-inch crash. All in all, this is an epic sounding rock kit. The kit was sampled with every articulation being recorded with up to 16 velocities. This can take up to 2 days. Then the best of these samples are selected and processed, which can take between 4 to 6 weeks. The drummer was Jason Bowld. Jason is known for his powerful drumming with metal supergroup Axewound and industrial legends Pitch Shifter. Jason has toured the world from club level to stadium level and continues to do so with various artists. The engineer was Martin Ford, who has produced and mixed many rock and metal bands including Bullet for My Valentine, Slipknot, As I Lay Dying, Trivium, Derg From Within and Funeral for a Friend. The kit was recorded in the Garden Studios in London. There was a D112 on the kick drum, coupled with a Yamaha NS10 cone to capture the kicks sub. There was SM57s used on snare top and snare bottom. For the hi-hat there was a KM84. Rack toms were Sennheiser MD421. Floor tom was Electro Voice RE20. The ride and the China splash were Brule and Kier 4011s. The overheads were Coles ribbon mics. The room microphones were AKG C12s. The kit was mixed in the engine room studio on an SSL G series console, along with various top-class outboard equipment. So as we can see, the mix window is laid out like a traditional mixer, whereby you've got kick, snare, hat, 2 toms, floor tom, ride. Then on channels 9 to 16 we have the overhead mics and the room mic. We also have the master fader here at the end. So each channel obviously has a fader, each channel has a mute and solo switch, polarity switch, a pan knob, 2 sends, so we can send each of the individual drums on 2 send channels to various spring and convolution type reverbs. We have 2 main returns then to the master channel over here. We have a master volume here at the top and a master panner here at the top, and a master tuning knob also. Each of the individual drum channels can be routed directly out to individual channels on your digital audio workstation also if you wish. So we'll see, just as in previous iterations of this interface, at the bottom we have EQ options for each of the individual drums, so we can select a drum, switch on the EQ, and we can EQ the low, mid, high mid and high frequency for each of the individual drums. There's also a transient master where you can vary the attack and sustain of each of the drums. There's also a new feature which is the mic blend option. That's new to this version of the interface. This allows you to vary the mix of the overhead mics, for example, with the sub-bass mic, along with the close mics and the room mic. So you can vary the amount of these mics in the mix, and you can vary them per drum. There's a bus compressor over here on the master bus. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. We can also add some tape saturation, some high frequency roll off, or some warm. If we click on this Groove Player tab at the bottom of the interface, it brings up the Groove Player page. This is a new feature. This page contains 4-bar MIDI loops that you can audition in a number of ways and then export into your project. It also contains a groove slicer function for easy MIDI pattern chopping and rearranging. So let's have a look. We select the genre heavy rock and we have a number of folders with MIDI grooves set to various timings and various tempos. So let's sample a groove here by double clicking on it, and we'll play the groove. Try another one. So we have a number of options here attached to the MIDI grooves themselves. The first is the standalone offline option. This is an offline mode for playing back the MIDI grooves. It should be selected if you use Kontakt in standalone mode. Then there's the Digital Audio Workstation Sync, which is this one here. Select this mode if if you use Kontakt as a plugin within your Digital Audio Workstation. And basically it will sync so that when you start your workstation, it will start the Groove Player. If you choose this last option here, Digital Audio Workstation Sync, Start and Stop, basically this will sync up the start and stop mode of your Digital Audio Workstation with the Kontakt MIDI Groove Player. Down the bottom here we have the Groove Slicer. This allows us to cut up the MIDI loops. So we have a number of options when cutting up the MIDI grooves. One is pattern sequence, key sequence and key trigger. Pattern sequence, use this mode to load and play back MIDI slice patterns from the slice patterns folder. Okay, so let's have an example here. We'll open up the patterns folder. Okay, so as you can see we have a number of options for MIDI slicing patterns here that we can utilize. Then we have the key sequence section. The 32 slices are also triggered from your MIDI keyboard when you use this option. And under key trigger, 32 slices are mapped to different keys on your keyboard. So you can do the mapping here. Next we look at the sequencer. Selecting the sequencer tab at the bottom of the interface will bring up the sequencer page. The sequencer is a 32-step sequencer that has 8 channels that allow any of the articulations of the kit to be selected and played. So here's the sequencer. This section allows you to quickly build intricate and interesting drum grooves independent of your Digital Audio Workstation. Grooves can be saved and reloaded using the load and save patterns. There's also a tempo function that allows you to double or half the speed of the sequencer. So let's have an example. Let's look at the sequencer in a little more detail. Okay, so we'll notice here that by default, and in the example that I showed you previously, we were in note mode. So note mode, you know, is selected when you've got this note selected here on each of the individual channels. It's Selecting the note icon in the channel allows you to draw a value into each of the steps of the sequencer to create a pattern, just as we've been doing. However, there's also something called percent mode. When we click on percent mode, we notice it changes to red. Percent mode affects the likelihood of that trigger playing back. For example, percentage set to 100% will always play back, whereas any steps set to 0% will never play back. So it's varying the likelihood of this note being played back. Actually, let's see an example of that. So I'm going to vary the percentage likelihood of the kick being played back on these first two here. Okay, so we can see as I increase the likelihood of the kick being played back, we notice this one was played here. Also, there's a move option on each channel. So we can see this move slider here. So the move function, which can be set independently for each track, by the way, it can again be used to subtly, or not so subtly, change the pattern for each channel. So let's see some examples. So on the kit page we can audition any of the drums. We can also vary the velocity curve according to each individual drum. So you can select the drum here, such as the snare drum, vary the velocity curve. You can also create your own velocity curve if you wish. You can save velocity curves and you can load previously saved velocity curves as well. Velocity curves are really useful if you have V drums, so you can change the sensitivity of each pad with each drum. You can easily select a particular drum, like for example the kick drum, change the velocity curve and hit apply to all instruments, and then it will apply that velocity curve to all kick and snare, etc. You can also load and save your own velocity maps, and you can also tune each individual drum from the kit page. So for example, the tom. So we can vary the tuning on each individual drum using this tuner here. We can also load and unload each or any of the individual drums themselves to save memory if we wish. So for example, we can take a snare drum, press unload. That will unload the snare drum temporarily and it will be grayed out here. And at any point you can reload the snare drum at a later stage. Okay, so next let's look at the settings page. Here we have some randomizations. This allows us to vary the tuning, the velocity, the timing and the EQ of the drums that we're hearing. This helps give a more human feel to the playing of the kit. A little bit more natural sounding. Down below we have a list of the articulations. If for example you want to use the V drum, you can load any MIDI mapping for the V drums. There's also maps for a number of the other drums such as Slate Digital, Superior Drummer, etc. So you can also use the learn function to assign a particular note to one of the articulations and build your own map as you see fit. So finally, at the bottom of the sequencer is the groove delay function. Drawing a value into one of these steps in the groove delay function will delay all of the steps above it for each channel. Increasing the value will increase the amount of delay that occurs. So there are also a number of mix presets that we can use. Okay, so you can also obviously save your own presets as well. I should mention that up here we have a master volume, a master panner as well, and a master fader here. So that's it for the new Mapex Saturn series kit. Look out for more great releases from DrumDrops.